softening his positions right now that he no longer has to worry about getting the nomination, the Republican presidential nomination, now that he has to worry about a general election. He seems to be softening his position on some sensitive issues like a temporary ban on Muslims coming to the United States. He now says that's a suggestion. He seems to be softening his position on tax policy. Is he now moving away from the right, shall we say, towards the center as he worries about a general election? Because that's what regular politicians, as you know, do.
No, not at all. What Mr. Trump is saying is that, yes, all of his policies are suggestions like any other candidate. We all recall that time when if you liked your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Guess what? That actually didn't stay the policy. Mr. Trump is just being very honest with voters, and he has not backpedaled. And let me repeat this. He has not backpedaled on his Muslim ban. He said he would back off of it in an instant if things have taken place to where we could properly vet individuals. So this media outcry of how Trump has somehow backed off of his Muslim ban, I find quite absurd, because that is just simply not the case.
Because he's not talking about a temporary ban on Syrian refugees coming to the United States. Does he still stand by his position there should be a temporary ban on all Muslims coming to the United States? Because now he's saying also that's a suggestion.
Well, I've actually heard that the ban included all Muslims, but it didn't. I mean, the facts of the matter is, if you can go back and look at the policy, it was an immigration policy. It never included American Muslims living abroad. It never included anyone other than those looking to immigrate into this country. So even that has been total media spin and completely false.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice.
Well, he said in that initial statement, I think it was back in December, that there should be a ban on Muslims coming to the United States. He since then has modified
policy, absolutely.
He says there can be some exceptions. Since then, he says that. But bottom line, and you're the spokeswoman for the Trump campaign, is he still saying there should be a ban on Muslims coming to the United States with only a few exceptions? For example, King Abdullah of Jordan, who's a friend of the United States, or the new mayor of London, who would like to come to the United States, clearly.
Well, we're talking about two different things. The initial proposal, which was a ban on Muslims coming into the country as an immigration policy, that talked about until we can figure out what's going on. Now we're talking about people like King Abdullah or somebody like the mayor. Those people, we know who they are. We know where they stand. So those are the quote-unquote exceptions that he's talking about. If we don't know who an individual is coming in from a Muslim nation who's trying to come into this country, there's no paperwork, no way to identify their intentions, then those people need to undergo additional process of evaluation. He's just siding with our own national security advisors.
But when he made the initial statement, it wasn't just an immigration policy. It was on all Muslims, including tourists who wanted to get a visa to come to the United States.
I would highly suggest you go back to the original statement that he read from and the statement that was sent out to every single media outlet. In the subject line, it says immigration. That's the policy banner. So
he never meant that tourists would be banned from coming to the United States? Is that what you're now saying?
What I'm saying is it was an immigration policy. It never included a single Muslim. But we do have to take a step back. If we know who these individuals are, that's a completely
I understand
different
the immigration
story, and those
policy,
are the exceptions
but Katrina,
he's talking about.
Was there a ban on Muslim tourists coming to the United States until the U.S. could figure out what was going on? Was that included?
If these individuals could not be identified and did not have proper paperwork, absolutely.
But if they could be identified, did have proper paperwork, would he allow Muslim tourists to come to the United States?
Those are the exceptions, Wolf. Those are the exceptions, Wolf. If we can identify you, know where you come from, and can find your intentions, then of course, those would be the exceptions.
But
that's
remember,
what Mr. Trump
he called it a
about.
total and complete shutdown at the time, remember?
Yes, that's the immigration policy. You're absolutely right. We have seen time and time again that the media twist and turn Mr. Trump's policies, ask him questions out of context, and continue to use those comments to reshape his policies, and I'm just not going to let that happen.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this audio tape that the Washington Post released today. Donald Trump, he says that the voice on that audio, it's about 15 minutes or so, isn't him. But CNN's Drew Griffin spoke with a forensic audio specialist today to check that claim. I want you to listen to what that specialist said.
Based on the critical listening and based on some pitch results, statistics, and analysis, I can conclude with a fair degree of scientific certainty that it is Donald Trump's voice.
All right, so you want to react to that. Donald Trump this morning on the Today Show said that wasn't his voice. Is that still his position?
Yes, it is actually. I don't know who that person is or who's paying that person, but I will say it doesn't sound like Donald Trump to me either. And if he says it's not him, it's not him. The question I have, though, is why exactly is this national news? A People magazine interview from decades ago? This is not newsworthy, Wolf, but I will tell you, I am looking very forward to CNN pushing out audio from the mid-'80s of Hillary Clinton in an interview with Roy Reid, how she's laughing about getting off a child rapist. I want to hear that video because that is newsworthy. And let someone from the Clinton campaign come on and talk about, is that Hillary Clinton's voice as she laughs about how she had this man's underwear removed from the case and he ended up walking scot-free. That's news.
You know, here's the issue, and I agree with you. If he was having some fun 25 years ago with a reporter from People magazine and he was making up this notion that there was a spokesman, you know, that's old history. That's not news. Who cares? He could have said that.
It's completely irrelevant.
But if he lied this morning on national television to Savannah Guthrie and insisted that was not his voice, when experts are now saying it was his voice, that raises it to a whole different level. I assume you agree.
But I think Donald Trump would be the expert on whether or not it's his voice. He says it's not his voice. It doesn't even sound like it to me. It's not Donald Trump. It sounds like a great impersonation, but it's definitely not Mr. Trump.
But if he lied on national television, you, as a presidential nominee, that's a much bigger deal than having some fun 25 years ago. If it's not him, then he's obviously not lying. But now all these experts are saying it is him. You've heard that audio specialist make the suggestion. They listen very carefully. One audio specialist that I've never even heard of say that it was him because of pitch and tone or what have you. If you listen to the audio, which many people have, even I have, it does not sound like Mr. Trump. It sounds like a guy from New York. But even at the time, he was acknowledging, he did occasionally use the name John Miller. He was acknowledging that maybe he was having some fun. So it's not just an audio specialist. Very common name. Yeah, very common name, Wolf. John Smith, John Miller. But I can tell you this, nobody cares. We have very serious problems in the United States. We have ISIS running rampant. We have an economy that had little to no growth in the first quarter. And we're talking about a People magazine interview. Let's get back to the things that are relevant to the presidential race. We certainly will. We certainly will. But did he have someone on his staff named John Miller or John Barron? I'm not sure. I'm sure they're checking the records. It's 25 years ago, even if they exist. But at the end of the day, this does not matter. It was a People magazine interview. It was not Mr. Trump on the audio. I don't care how many specialists you have. It doesn't even sound like Mr. Trump. But again, the voters don't care about this stuff. This is one of the reasons why people go to people like Facebook, outlets like Facebook to get their news media, and why the media now ranks under lawyers in favorability. This is not news. I agree that what happened 25 years ago, if he was having some fun with the reporters, wouldn't be news. But it is news, Katrina, if he actually, as some are now suggesting, if he actually lied on national television, that would be news. Well, the reason I'm saying this is because the audio was put out as Mr. Trump posing as, you know, some publicist. That's not news. This is an old interview at People magazine that wasn't Mr. Trump, and the news media made it news. But I will tell you that audio from the past of Hillary Clinton representing a child rapist is news. So I look forward to seeing that on this program next week. If it's wrong to bring up stuff from 25 years ago involving Donald Trump, why is it right to bring up stuff from 35 years ago involving audio tapes of Hillary Clinton? Because it's made up. That's not Mr. Trump. He said it wasn't me. There's nothing to be gained or lost by saying that it was. That's my point here. This is not news. Mr. Trump was asked, and the question was answered. That should be the end of it. But you know he did testify at one point under oath before some court proceeding that he did use occasionally a fake name as a publicist, if you will. He himself has said that. Well, I do believe the name you're referring to is John Barron. In this case, it was a guy named Miller, which is
totally not the same thing.
So you're saying there was a John
Barron. It wasn't me, and that should be the end of it.
But let me just wrap this part of the interview up. You're saying there was a John Barron and there was a John Miller, both of whom are public relations specialists who worked for Mr. Trump.
I don't know who worked for Mr. Trump, Wolf. What I'm saying is Mr. Trump was asked, was this you on the phone? And he said no. That should be the end of it. That is not news. This is not a news story. It's not a big deal. And that's the problem I'm having with this discussion right now.